And it was very significant as well because Her Majesty passed as well.
Politicians forget is that they're elected by the people to represent the people.
The Women's Fund supports projects that support women and children all around Milton Keynes.
And they have started this campaign called Ask Her to Stand. And it's a brilliant campaign because it's trying to get more women to step up.
It was the first time it had ever been read in Milton Keynes, and honest to God, the hairs on the back of my neck stood up because I knew that I had the weight of history on my shoulders.
This episode of All Things Business, the podcast, is brought to you by our digital media partner, DFA Law. DFA Law, providers of expert and dedicated legal advice to businesses and families since 1838. DFA Law, the law firm for life.
Ladies, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you.
Very
Thank
excited
you.
to be here.
Are you?
No. Only brag ourselves.
Tell your face out then, Amanda. We're in for a special episode, I think, if the first 5 minutes before Alpha Press record is anything to go by. But it's a special edition, or a special episode, shall I say, because it's today is International Women's Day. Well, obviously we're recording this, but this is going out on International Women's Day. And I'm joined by three very inspirational ladies that play pivotal roles, not just in business, but in the community. So, Amanda, please introduce yourself.
Yeah, hi everybody. My name is Amanda Marlowe. I am the Business Development Manager for a local charity called the Safety Centre. And prior to that, I had a small civic role, shall we say, in Milton Keynes.
Shazna?
Hi, my name is Shazna Muzamil. I am the Conservative Group Leader in the Milton Keynes City Council, and I work full-time at the Open University.
And last but by no means least, Michelle.
Morning, my name is Michelle Thumer. I run a recruitment company called Conceptonics Recruitment with my business partner, Joe Carter, and I also wear the hat of Chair of Women in Enterprise.
Away, eh, Joel? I haven't seen Joel for a while.
She'll pop in anytime you want to do a podcast with her, I am sure.
I don't know if we've got enough battery to keep it going. Everyone loves Jo. She's lovely.
She's great.
So we're going to talk about your journeys and why we're sort of here, really. It's been a while since I did a podcast with Fraser, but we would occasionally talk about politics. And I know that's rule number one not to, but we've got to touch on that in terms of your journey, Shazna. But firstly, Amanda, let's start with you. Because your small civic role that you mentioned, just talk us about that and what got you into it.
Okay, so the small civic role that I mentioned was that I was the Mayor of Milton Keynes for the year 2022 to 2023. It was a significant year for Milton Keynes because that was the year that we got awarded city status, something that we had tried 3 times previously, and it was basically, I think, a last-ditch effort to get this one over the line, and we did.
Brilliant. And it was very significant as well because Her Majesty passed as well.
She did. So not long. So in the September, she died, and that was a massive thing because obviously for the country, you know, our Queen had died, but for Milton Keynes, it was an incredible thing because Milton Keynes had come into existence during Her Majesty's reign, and when I had to read the Declaration of the Proclamation, which is the special royal decree where they announce the death of the monarch and they announce the ascension of the new monarch, it was the first time it had ever been read in Milton Keynes. And honest to God, the hairs on the back of my neck stood up because I knew that I had the weight of history on my shoulders because this had never been done in Milton Keynes before.
But on reflection, incredibly proud moment for you and your family. Yeah.
Massive. I mean, I think, you know, when I sit back and I think about the things that I achieved during my mayoral year, no one can ever take that from me, Ben. I mean, it was truly momentous for me, for Milton Keynes, and also it helped me to showcase some of the things I felt very passionately about, which was people with disabilities, raising the agenda for those with learning difficulties and disabilities, and trying to get people to understand that, you know, they need more than what they're getting at the moment currently. So, that was a big thing. And I just, since then, having seen the difference that's made, the impact that's made, certainly around employment opportunities now. We have a company in Milton Keynes, M&M Foods, who've been working very closely with my mayoral charity of the year, which was MK Snap, in providing work placements for those adults with learning disabilities and difficulties. And just seeing those people actually going into the workplace now. And Frank Purcell, the MD, has actually said that he wants to get 25% of his workforce to be with people with disabilities. So I think that's absolutely incredible. And if more companies could start to follow suit, what a game changer that will be.
Definitely. And what was your why for becoming mayor? Like, talk me through that journey, and how long did that take?
So the why. So I have 4 children, 3 of whom have autism or other disabilities. And my youngest is, he's nonverbal. He's going to be 18 beginning of March, and he is autistic as well. So he is somebody who takes up an awful lot of my my headspace, really, because I always worry about him, and I always wonder what's going to happen next for him, and just try very hard to make sure that he has the best possible life that I can give him. Now, over the years, I've always been somebody who's fought really hard for my kids, for their futures, but also for other people's children as well, because, it's not just about my family, it's about other families. And I feel very strongly that, they are a minority, but they have a voice that needs to be heard. And quite often you'll find that the parents are unable to, articulate those needs and wants.
Know the support that's out there.
No, exactly.
And I also think we live in a world now where some people think that they wouldn't be accepted is the wrong word, but they wouldn't be entitled to that support. Yes,
exactly. And so the why for me was, gosh, it must have been, I think, about 2016, 2017. And Milton Keynes Council announced that they were cutting a small benefit to disabled families. So they have this thing called short break vouchers. So the idea being is that those families whose children receive an educational healthcare plan would get a small amount of money in order to give them respite throughout the year. I mean, and it is a small amount of money. I mean, back then it was £120. And the council decided that they were going to ring fence this so that it was only going to be applicable to those who were claiming free school meals. Now, for disabled families, that was quite a difficult thing for them to navigate, because you have some disabled families whose income is just above the threshold, so they're not eligible for free school meals, yet they struggle to meet the day-to-day demands. And so to lose £120 worth of short break vouchers, and that money was going to be used for, just to be able to, say, take that child to the cinema or bowling or an activity.
Respite for the family.
For the family. And it was just a really important thing. So I got really cross about it. And for somebody who wasn't known for going up and making a big noise, I did. And I won. And it was just, and I was so shocked that I won. And it was like, okay, all right, what else can I do? And it sort of grew from there. So I ended up becoming an elected ward councillor in 2019 for the Loughton and Shenley ward, a Conservative ward councillor. And I'll be honest with you, Ben, I worked my backside off. I really did. I tried to make sure that my residents were listened to, that we addressed things.
How many residents did you have in your constituency? Just roughly.
Roughly, I think it was about 6,000 houses, I think. So, it's quite a big area, of which you have to then leaflet regularly.
Get the
steps in, yeah. So there was, it's a lot of work, and you're always very, and I think to be a successful ward councillor, you have to be proactive. So rather than waiting for people coming to you, you have to go out there and look for what needs to be fixed, what needs to be changed.
I mean, first of all, amazing. And I'm going to come on to you as well, Shazna, now. But that must have been incredibly hard, very rewarding when you get that win and when you get those wins along the way. But surely there must have been a lot of rough days where you thought, why am I doing this?
Oh, for sure. I mean, you'd knock on the door to somebody and you'd get a mouthful of abuse. And you'd be just sitting there thinking, okay, deep breath. Right, thank you very much. And be very polite and not argue back.
You've got to be brave as well.
Yeah, you do. Because
would you do, how many people would go with you on when you were going out on those campaigns, knocking doors and leaflets and stuff?
Leafleting, to be honest, it would just be me and my kids would be helping me, and my husband would just be helping us.
Really?
So so we would just go and just literally blitz the whole ward within probably 2 weekends, which doesn't sound a lot, but actually it's a lot of steps and it's a lot of posting through letterboxes and various things. In terms of
you would have heard a few dogs barking at you. No doubt.
Canvassing and stuff. Yeah. Oh no, I had a foolproof method for getting leaflets through letterboxes without getting bitten, because that is a genuine thing with councillors.
Takes you back to when I used to do the paper rounds, and you always get those fast ones that would graze your fingers on the way out,
or the cat that would be. Yeah, exactly. No, all of those things. No, I mean, it was difficult, rewarding, exhilarating, soul destroying. The peaks and troughs are huge.
So, Shazna, you're there, sort of.
I can resonate.
Yeah, resonating exactly.
Yeah, I can. But I think as a group, we do. Kind of everyone goes to goes and helps, but it's mostly us trying to get it, because resources are so scarce. We need more people to come out and help us, but it's always that, isn't it? And then you end up with your family trying to cover as much ground as you can. And honestly, this letterbox business, it's a skill, and I don't know who has. The ones that I really fear are those letterbox that's at the very bottom. I am cursing while I have to bend down and stick something through that. Gosh, I'm like, why did they even invent something like? Why do they allow?
They've done it on purpose.
Hideous ones. Though I have to say, I did actually one day lose my wooden spoon, because I used to use a wooden spoon to post leaflets through doors, because I didn't want to get my fingers bitten off by. Yeah. So and I shut a wooden spoon. Yeah. So
you gave me one.
Yeah. So you'd fold your leaflet over the end of the wooden spoon. You'd lift the letterbox off with your left hand, and you'd shove the leaflet through using the wooden spoon to kind of as momentum. But one day I shoved a bit too hard and literally lost the wooden spoon through the letterbox, and it was on somebody's doorbell, and I had to ring the doorbell, and it was like that whole kind of, please sir, can I have my ball back moment.
I use a mountain glove, and I've actually got my whole hand inside a German Shepherd. I had literally please let go now. Oh no, it's not fun. But I didn't lose any fingers, but managed to get lost my glove though.
So Shazna, tell us about your journey, because yours is it's a really interesting one, and not just on a local or regional, but now on a national scale as well. But before we talk about the Ask Her to Stand campaign, which I think is fantastic, how did you get into counselling?
Yeah, so I'm originally from Sri Lanka, as you can see. But I grew up there. I grew up around the Civil War, went to school around the Civil War. As young kids, we were told constantly, bomb drills and fire drills, and you carry your backpack and you get checked at police checkpoints regardless of what your age is. It's quite traumatic, I mean, when I think about it. But it was the norm. And I am the only girl in a family with 4 boys, a very conservative family, quite privileged to have been born into a family that was, from a privileged background. And but of course, it was the boys who got, I come from a society where my brothers got to go to the best schools, and they were sent abroad for education. I was allowed to study until until my parents found me a husband. It was almost like I do that as a side thing, just to keep me occupied. I was the nightmare girl child for my mom. And then, of course, they gave me away in marriage at a very young age. I didn't complete my education. I had 2 young kids, and I couldn't conform to the whole make tea, cook, do the whole household thing. I was not built for that. My dad used to describe me to others as trying to pin down a winged horse, and you can't. And that was me, because there was no way. You lay down some rules, I'll find a way to break it. And my mom was very, very strict. So I come from a Muslim background, so they expect me to cover my hair, cover my head, and be the perfect. My family background was that. Okay, so it was, what they expected of me was stay at home, be a good be a good wife to your husband, raise your children,
sleep, eat, repeat.
Yeah, exactly that. But of course, I
rebelled probably sounds.
I did rebel, actually. I had to literally fight for my divorce. There's no way I could get one, because my children would go. I would lose custody of my kids because I wasn't working. I had no job. I had no qualification. I couldn't support myself.
Were you in Sri Lanka at this point?
Yeah, of course, in Sri Lanka at this point. So it was really hard to get. I had to strategize on how I'm going to get out of my marriage. Whilst in my marriage, of course, I did start studying, using via correspondence school. And my husband didn't like that at all. He used to travel a lot, which is quite nice, because then I had my then husband, because then I had all the time to study and do other things that we like to do, and just me and the boys. But somehow managed to get my divorce and went back to education, which is why I think education, I'm so passionate about education. I think education is absolutely important. So I went back to school, completed my school education. I got my master's. And with my 2 boys in, clapping all the way. And that was all I wanted them to see, was that,
you can achieve anything.
We can achieve anything.
And may I ask, because I'd learned a lot
I was
there.
in my 30s when I graduated.
Really? And relationship with your brothers, were they
fantastic?
Really?
Yeah, I mean the boys. So I wasn't allowed to play, get involved in anything in school, like play sport and stuff like that. But my brothers had, their tennis rackets and their shorts, and they would lend them to me, so I would go to school. My school had every facility you could dream of. We had swimming pools and badminton courts and netball courts, and I used to take part in athletics. But I never brought home anything back. None of my medals, trophies.
And were you, if you don't mind me asking, were you in the minority then in terms of other girls your age going through that journey, or
yeah,
or was that?
It was because I think at the time, a very strict community, very small community, very ethnic minorities, even in Sri Lanka, and I think, I don't know, I feel like it's not like, I think they did it to protect me. I feel like my parents did everything they could to kind of, I think in their eyes it was to safeguard me from, getting involved with, boys, or, I don't know, it was a cultural thing, and I played along because I didn't know anything better. But of course, my dad was involved in politics, and he,
oh really?
Yeah, and that's all I remember.
Do you think that's where your passions come from?
Yeah, both of them are hugely involved in the community, and they give back so much. And I remember my dad, when he was the mayor of Colombo, he used to tell me not to even take a pencil home from the council because that's taxpayers' money. And he wouldn't let me draw any salary or anything because I used to help him in the council. And, you know, even his salary, he wouldn't take it. He would give it back to some society. So we Buddhist society 1 month, it'll go to the Islamic society 1 month, the Christian society 1 month. Yeah, and he wouldn't draw any money from the council. So he is truly like, you know, my huge inspiration for all this. I've seen him do all this work. Our house used to be somewhere where all the politicians used to come and from all the different parties, and he would, you know, work with all of them to achieve, you know, what was best for the residents. And I would watch from sidelines because we can't get involved in any of these things. But of course, after my divorce, I, you know, got my education. I went and I started working. I went back to communities, you know, the smaller communities in Sri Lanka, and started working with those communities to encourage the girl child to be educated.
Yeah.
And I was a board member of the Women's Chamber of Industry and Commerce in Sri Lanka at the time. And we had a large pool of fantastic women who, you know, who were heading banks and in education, you know, running big companies. And they would all step in to support, and we did a lot of work around that.
Brilliant. And none of that had really gone on before you?
No, it's hard to get into these communities because they're all like, oh, we don't want, you know, we're not sending our girls to school, we are not, you know, we can support them and so on. But it was speaking to the, you know, the leaders of those communities and saying it's important to get, you know, to provide the girl child education because she then looks after all of you, you know, the entire community benefits. And it was having those conversations and making them understand it. And when they said, no, we are not sending them to school, we brought the school to them.
Yeah.
You know, so it was like, you know, setting up little community places of education and bringing teachers in and all that. And it was great. It worked quite well. I then went on to work, you know, support them into, you know, getting them training that they needed so that they can go and work. I worked with the banks to get them loans at very small interest rates, to give them small loans so they can start their own businesses. Mm-hmm. And then, and I was, you know, working as head of business development and leading comms in like various international companies in Sri Lanka at the time. And I used to work very closely with all the embassies, including the British Embassy, which was very helpful in some of the projects that we did in the rural areas. And it was really, really fulfilling. I quite enjoyed. I really loved that, and we campaigned actually for 25% female representation in local government, and that got gazetted in 2018, if I'm not mistaken, in Sri Lanka.
Really.
And then because we needed more women to stand.
So when did you come to the UK?
2018.
And if
2017 I came, so just before we got gazetted.
And why Milton Keynes?
Because so I met David in Sri Lanka.
Okay.
And we were not, you know, our plans were not to come here. We got married there, and you know, I was doing all these things, and it was important to me. So, you know, we were there, but Dave's dad fell ill. My son by then had gone off to university, my elder boy. My younger son was 13 and 14. And Dave's dad fell ill, and he decided to come home because he's been in the military and, you know, working in security for so long that he's been traveling, and he's never been home for a long time. So he thought it was time that he moved back to be closer to his parents. And his parents, they're from Bedford.
Oh, okay.
So they're just on the border of Milton Keynes. And so then, you know, we spoke about coming here to the UK. My concern was my kids, you know, of course my elder, I had my, you know, the three of us were such a close unit. The boys and I have such a fantastic relationship. I was like, do I want to, you know, leave my boys behind or do I take them? So it was having those tough conversations with the children, and the boys were actually very encouraging of me to go, and they were like, "You've done enough, just go do what you need to do." But my elder boy had already left home, but it was my younger son, but he was such a homebody. He needed his family. He was so close to my parents that it would have killed him if I'd moved him.
Yeah.
And so I decided to leave him behind.
Yeah.
And
is he, so that was 7 years ago?
Yeah, 7, 8 years ago.
So is he in university now?
He graduated from Bristol University last year.
Oh, fantastic.
In the summer. But it was hard,
Yeah.
you come here and then I couldn't find a job after having all my degrees and working, leading companies and running fantastic campaigns for all these, multinationals. Still couldn't find a job. I had to start at the Open University, right at the bottom of the ladder, taking calls from students. And I took that job on because I wasn't going to sit around waiting for, don't want any, waiting for handouts or support from anybody. And I was like, no, I'm going to start working. My husband was furious. He was like, you're never going to get something at the stature you were in if you start so low on the ladder. But I said, you know what? I work hard. I'm not afraid of working hard. And I worked my way up the ladder.
And 7 years on, you're still at the university?
I'm still at the university, and I love what I do. I mean, it's everything to do with education. I wish they had online distance learning in Sri Lanka at the time. It would have been really helpful for someone like me. I could have used it. But the toughest bit for me was actually leaving my son behind. I don't think there was a day that I didn't wake up and have a good cry because I couldn't see him or be there with him.
And so at what point was it that did you start to get involved in...
I came here and I thought I'm not getting involved in politics.
Yeah.
Because I've been, in Sri Lanka, you do something, you're in the newspaper. If I'm having a drink...
Is there a big difference in Sri Lanka politics?
It's brutal there.
More brutal than here?
Yeah, absolutely. There is no room for... they will rip you apart. They won't just take you down if they want to attack you. They will take your family down. They will take your children down.
When you say they, the media, the
press.
The
media and, of course, the press are being fed from the opposition or parties. So, it's just crazy. This is really mild, I think, in the UK.
Bloody hell.
Amanda might disagree.
I laugh because
What do you two think to that? Because I'm surprised at that. From your experience, obviously, I know you're not in politics, but somebody that isn't in politics and somebody that's been in there.
I'm not surprised by it because I spent my formative years living abroad because my dad was in the Foreign Office, and from the age of 13 to 16 we lived in Kolkata in India, and
I didn't know that.
Yeah. So and I can remember the politics of the time, because actually West Bengal is Marxist. So, it was certainly back then. That was like the last century. But anyway, I do remember it was, particularly brutal. And we were there when Mrs. Gandhi was assassinated.
Really?
Yeah. And the British ambassador, High Commissioner in, I think it was in Mumbai, was assassinated, and we had a bodyguard with us. So everybody who was within the diplomatic service had bodyguards. So we had bodyguards, which was just mad.
It's the norm there.
Absolutely.
When my father was like few feet away from the president when he was assassinated on the 1st of May at a May Day rally. And that was pretty much, like the things we see on a regular basis. I've had, big lorry bomb go off right next to my school where, we've lost 2 of our schoolmates. And, we are on literally on this, almost robotic, we start helping up, we're not thinking of anything else. It's like, okay, we'll very calmly move everyone onto the school grounds. And it was really I don't know, I sometimes think that I have PTSD or something, but I don't know. I've never really thought about it that way. But there have been times where coffins have been brought outside our house and burnt.
Oh my gosh.
It's really, and this is really minor stuff that I'm talking about as well. My dad was kidnapped as well.
Kidnapped?
For
how long?
I don't for about a month maybe or 2. I don't know. I can't remember. I was quite young at the time. So I vaguely remember that, and it was like everyone's trying to get him back from, I think he was taken to India by boat or something like that. And but this was the kind of environment we grew up in, and
I'm sorry, kidnapped?
He's absolutely gobsacked. I think you actually managed to stun Ben.
But it is. I'm not trying to be morbid or anything.
No.
But this is for me. Politics here. When I say it's the level of the abuse that I struggle. But I say I struggle, but I don't really take note of. Is the online abuse that we get a lot. When I first campaigned here, it was during COVID. I stood in Bletchley East as a councillor. I left a leaflet, and this guy came up behind me and he ripped it up and gave it to my hand, and he started yelling at me, and I was more concerned about my friend across the road who had stopped leafleting and was horrified and crying because of the abuse that he was hurling. And I was like, okay, sorry, you should be, we are actually lucky to be in a country where you have a choice. You can actually decide who you want to vote for.
Absolutely.
And, and we are so privileged here and we take so much for granted. It's ridiculous. So yeah, my main concern was, running over to make sure she was fine. So but it's not as, it's bad. It shouldn't be bad, because there shouldn't be. Getting involved in politics means you're really putting yourself out there and you're exposing yourself for abuse. When I speak to potential candidates, one of the first thing I say is, you have to have a thick skin. You have to have resilience. Which job description has that on the jobs? On the job description.
And we've from. Talking before, but obviously listening to this, I'm not surprised either. We don't have enough ladies that are standing, do we?
And
that's not
it's a tough gig.
Locally,
it's a tough
nationally.
gig. Yeah.
So tell us about.
It's a fulfilling gig.
Yeah, tell us about Ask Her to Stand, which is Ask Her to Stand. That's a cross-party initiative, yeah.
It's a cross-party initiative. I was quite fortunate because when I first moved here, I got an email from, I don't know how it happened. It just ended up in my inbox. And then I reached out to them and I realized that I really didn't want to get involved in politics. I wanted to stay under the radar. But I think it took me, maybe about 2 months in, and then I'd become a party member already. So I realized that this is in me.
Deja vu.
So I was like, okay, I can't stay out. And so I'd already registered, and then this email came through, and I thought, what, I'll just see what it's about. And I started engaging with them, and I went to some of their events, and I was really impressed by the work that they're doing. So their ultimate goal is to have a 50-50 parliament, and they have started this campaign called Ask Her to Stand, and it's a brilliant campaign because it's trying to get more women to step up in any form, in local council, as school governors, as MP candidates, in any form. But it's just that we need more women to stand. It's harder for us because we have so much other priorities as well. But of course, we have our superpower of multitasking.
If you say this a lady that's listening to this now, or somebody that knows of a really strong, resilient lady, why should they stand? Why should they get involved? Because
they add so much value to the conversations that's happening in the council. Their perspective is needed to make certain decisions in the council. If you notice, it's always us, women, that step up and help our neighbor or help our school,
Most men do as well.
I know.
Listen, just because I'm in the minority here. Don't
No,
think
I
I'm not
know.
going to fly
But
the flag.
I
real
think
quick.
we have a lot of. We are givers, and I think we need to be there. We need to have a seat at the table, and we need to be contributing to this conversation, because it's not just affecting us, it's affecting a large part of our community. It's our children's life we're changing. It's our neighbors' lives we're changing. We call this home, and then we, why are we not contributing to making our home that much better?
But do you, and I don't, if I'm going to put you on the spot, just tell me if you don't want to answer this, but I imagine, and I might be wrong, this could be my naivety, Amanda, but when you're campaigning and you're representing your ward, which typically might be 4,000 to 8,000 properties, so it's 10 to
Not
20,000
anymore.
people.
You have about 11,000 people.
Okay, yeah. And then you're rallying around for that large group of people, but within reason, within the area that you're representing, it's still a small group of people in comparison to the other areas. Do you get frustrated, or how frustrated do you get when the powers that be don't listen or action what you're telling them? Like, do you have to, when we say fight and demonstrate for what your 11,000 people you're representing, is that evidence? Do you need polls and signatures?
Well, what politicians forget is that they're elected by the people to represent the people. And the minute you forget who you represent, you start making decisions that's politically ambitious for yourself, and we stop listening, right? And I am very conscious of the fact that I am in a very privileged position to influence certain decisions, and that I have been given a responsibility. People have gone to the ballot box and put a cross next to my name, and I take that responsibility very seriously. And that is the kind of, and I'm very lucky because I've got fantastic 9 councillors. We are small at the moment. We won't be, I know, but and that is something that across my group we keep that first and foremost in our mind. As long as you remember that you're there to represent people, it's not about you. It's not about you anymore, because you are now the mouthpiece for your residents. So it's got to be something, that's going to work for the residents. I work very closely with my residents. I constantly share a lot of the stuff that I do, because even if I go, for example, for a conference, for local government conference, I put something out there because it's taxpayers' money that's paying for this, right? And I'm responsible for that. And I have to tell them, you are giving me the skills that I need to serve you better.
So if
it frustrates me when things don't go our way, but we will still keep making those noises. We need to make our voices heard, and that's the only way to do it, is talk about it.
So if we look at politics as a whole, it's the only, I believe it's probably the only sector, if you like, that hasn't evolved in recent decades. Whereas if you look at your business and my business and the safety centre, charity sector, even education, they're all run differently in 2025 as to what they were in 2015, 2005, 1995. They've all evolved. But I don't think politics has. And I think that there is a bigger disconnect now between politicians and the man, woman on the street. Than it's wider now than it ever has been before. How do we bridge that gap?
So there is a huge distrust among residents, and I feel very bad because they need to be engaging in politics. What I find on the doorstep also is that a lot of people don't even use their vote. And that shocks me, because you have a right to speak up, and this is your way of,
But so that's general election, I think, was it 36% of people voted?
Look at our by-elections. Look at our local elections. Less than 30% show up. To the ballot box.
But for general election was that figure okay? And I was really, really surprised by that. If somebody asked me, I would have probably said 60% of people did.
I think there's so much apathy about Ben.
But why can't we either? And I'd get enforce it. So if you don't vote, you get a fine. But
That happens in Australia.
okay, but is that a good thing or not?
I don't know, because I believe in providing everyone with their personal freedoms, respecting that.
Yeah.
It's decisions that you provide them with the tools to make the decisions that's best for themselves, and I think that's a core conservative value, actually, and I believe in that firmly.
So where does it start then? Should politics be taught in schools a lot younger than what it is?
we were taught
so then
politics
people
in
can
school.
understand the value of what that vote is, because
Yeah.
I think my generation is probably the last one of where the majority go out and vote. I think the generation after me, I think that I might be well wrong.
Well, I
there.
mean, I've got 3 children of voting age, and they all vote. So they were,
You'd kick them out if they didn't.
well, yeah, quite exactly right.
Do you know how they vote, Amanda?
Vote, yeah. But it was one of those, those kind of. It was. I suppose, it was one of those key moments in life. Is that you're old enough to drive a car. You're old enough to vote. You're old enough to to get a job. All of those things, they're massive milestones, and I think there's something to be cherished. And going back to the we have a right to vote. I really feel strongly about the right to vote, because when I sit there and I think women in this country lost their lives to give us the vote. Men lost their lives to get people who weren't landed gentry the vote. It's such an important part that we have to all respect, and not sit there and just be, I don't know,
Do you think we should embrace?
about
Do you
it.
think maybe the voting process should be revisited?
I don't
And
think
we-
it's a process, Ben, because I think it's people don't understand the value of their vote, and I think there has to be lots of education around it. Because you can change the process all you like, people will still decide whether they want to engage with it or not. But if you don't know what you're engaging with, why would you then
Yeah, so I think that's a valid point. I've done the Euro Millions for years, and the only obviously I've never won, because if I did, I wouldn't be here talking to you three lovely ladies. But the only reason I do it is because if I ever win it, I'm going to set up the Common Sense Party that will be driven by common sense, because I don't believe it, even now more than ever. Common sense isn't very common, and I think that I think that's in all walks of life, but even more so within.
I think we forget that, you mentioned previously about politics not evolving. We forget that we are meant to be of service. When you're in a private sector, you have, it's a profit-making company. That's not it at all in politics. So it's important to, that we understand the differences and see how we are elected. People. When you go for a job interview, you do the interview and people select you, and you get a job, and you know your skills, and you provide that value to that firm. But when you put yourself forward, it's a very different thing, and it's you are literally being of service to people. But of course,
I get that at the local and regional level, because people in your constituency will love you for what you've done for them, because
they hate us too.
well, yes, I get that, yeah, but I do feel that and there is this crossover of public and private sector, because I feel public sector need to embrace private sector life in terms of what it is like, because I do believe if we were to put somebody in charge of the NHS that's run a multi-million pound construction or manufacturing business, he or she or they, in terms of multiple people, would make wholesale changes and would be able to transform the NHS
absolutely
into so it's not hemorrhaging money like it is.
Yeah, which is why it's good to bring those skills in, because that will be beneficial.
But that's common sense, right? Why has nobody done that?
You're going into the realms of recruitment now, aren't you?
See, look, tenuous link.
Tenuous link.
But-
Go for it.
We
Can you see that? Pardon?
It's a traditional thing.
Margaret Thatcher actually did start privatizing quite a bit, but it didn't. I mean,
It did not necessarily have to be privatised completely, but giving people at the top,
the autonomy to
go and make a change and make difference.
and that is important, and that needs to be done, and that we have to embrace that. in the public sector. We have to embrace that because we don't have the skills. Someone else will bring that skill in. So, somebody who's a CEO of a company. For example, a good example is actually Andy Street, who was the mayor of Birmingham. He was here in John Lewis, and he's transformed some of those areas in Birmingham, which is, unreal. It looks fantastic. So, the level of work that he has done. He's improved transport, and he's worked. He's made those changes there, like the executive that he was or that he is. And when he didn't get elected in May, one of the things I asked him was, would you stand as an MP? And he was like, no, I can't. I'm so used to being able to make those changes and make those differences and work like an executive that I will struggle being a backbench MP.
So, and where's your future then on that politics journey? Where do you see yourself?
I would like to try stand again. I did stand in the general elections in May. I stood in Birmingham actually. And was fantastic experience.
Was it?
One would say I'm a glutton for punishment, but but I loved it. It's brilliant. I love talking to people, and the people are so nice. Everyone, I knocked on the door, they'd invite me in, they'd offer me food and drink, and I probably, thought I've not been fed in a while. But they're so nice.
I might come with you.
But they're also, so nice under very difficult circumstances. They have, in Birmingham, they have the highest levels of unemployment, highest levels of child poverty in the country, highest levels of knife crime in the country. You have stats there that is not pleasant at all. And you see that everywhere you go. But I wouldn't change it for the world. I loved it. And I would like to stand again. I would like to represent Milton Keynes, but, hopefully we change that in the next election.
We're gonna follow your journey. It's an interesting one because we first met at the Milton Keynes Education Awards a couple of years ago.
Yeah,
she was my guest.
She certainly was, and you made a very very good first impression on me because I said to Amanda afterwards, "That's a very inspiring lady."
Thank you.
We've sort of covered a little bit of education and public service work. Michelle, tell us about your background with Joe, your business partner, in terms of the recruitment company, and then I want you to tell us about the event that you're organising.
Yeah, so I've been in recruitment 26 years. Started off in the corporate world in my early 20s. Went on to work for an owner-managed business for 17 years, and then during COVID, we had to obviously downsize. Nobody was recruiting at that time. So it was a bit of a difficult time, and the owner of the business ultimately decided to close the business down. I was made redundant. So it was a bit of a shock. Didn't quite know what to do. And then a really good client of mine said, put on your big girl pants and do what you've always done and go out and do it for yourself for once. Yeah. You've done it for everyone else, do it for yourself. So I effectively started the business, bought the name back, because I felt that the brand was quite an important brand, which was then Onyx Recruitment, and it was well known. Yeah. People knew me as Onyx, so I ran it as a solo for 3 years. So that was a strange journey. It was really difficult having managed teams, had people around me, and a lot of support to suddenly be on my own and working from home. Whilst educating the children, my French got better, but it was tough. It was really hard, and I thought,
comes back to that multitasking
again. I thought, I don't think I'm set up for this. And then Joe Carter, who at the time had an office in Milton Keynes, yeah, and ran Concept Personnel, was a digital and tech recruiter running her own business for 20 years. She very kindly said to me, well, rather than work at home, do you want to come and work in a little dusty corner of my office? Which is what I did. And it was a fabulous opportunity for two strong women who have very strong ideas about how the recruitment sector should look to sit in an office together and hear each other and share experience and knowledge and learning. And Joe and I would say, a fairly thick skin. So we were able to say, what just happened there? I wouldn't necessarily have dealt with it like that. I probably would have done this. And we started counselling each other, I guess, about situations that we found ourselves in post-COVID when people were finding it very difficult to know what's the best way to recruit. Yeah. Should I take this job? The candidate market in terms of psychology changed hugely.
And do you know, I still think there's, from an employer's perspective, there's a lot of uncertainty in terms of, like this hybrid work from home. We did it during COVID. We could do it going forward. And I've been very vocal about my thoughts on that. We operate a 2 and 3 day, two days off. 2 days off. Sorry, Arthur.
2 days from home?
Sorry, yeah. 2
Arthur,
days
take
from
2
home.
days off.
Where they can complete Netflix.
I want to work with you.
I'm joking. Wednesdays and Fridays. Right, I'll edit this bit out, Arthur. Wednesdays and Fridays, if you want to work from home, you can do.
Do you have a job opening? I'm just asking.
Monday, Tuesday and Thursday, everyone's in the office.
Yeah, we operate the same model.
Okay.
Yeah.
But as you read now from in the national press, and I think Barclaycard over the road from us here in Northampton, I think, have told their teams that they're from after Easter. I think they've got to be back in 4 days a week.
Yeah, it's going to prove tough to recruit.
Yeah, so from a recruitment perspective, how is that going to? Because
you miss
delegates,
a selective part of the marketplace
because people are holding out for those.
There's a demographic that you will not even get to talk to as a recruiting firm if you are only asking people to be in the office 5 days a week.
But if the culture you need is you want a culture or you want people in the office 5 days a week, there'd be, so what?
If you're inflexible on the working hours, then you have to be flexible in other areas. And that's the problem. If a firm says, okay, I would like this, and this is my wish list, and I want to tick all 5 of these boxes, I usually say, well, the first one, which is hybrid working or working in the office, that's a big deal for a lot of people now. Life's changed. How family looks has changed, priorities have shifted, and that's the key thing. So it depends what you're willing to flex on. So if you're willing to flex on hours or salary or benefits, a lot of people have pulled back on their benefits offering, working hours. It's one of those things where there are still people who prefer to be office based. I mean, we work a hybrid system, but I'm in the office 5 days a week, mainly because I've got a dog-friendly office and I don't want to be at home because I know I'll put the washing on or do something else and I want to focus on the job. So I like being in an office environment. Whereas Joe's team was there in Newcastle, they do 3 days in the office and 2 days from home.
Yeah, I think it's going to be fascinating this year how it pans out, because the bigger companies are sort of, if they weren't making those decisions, I don't think it would have as bigger impact. But I can see the talent pool potentially becoming richer for smaller businesses, because you're going to have those more people that have got those resumes with bigger organisations that are going, actually, do you know what? I'm prepared to go and work for an SME.
Yeah, I think people are flexing on what they want out of their next move as well.
Yeah.
And that is part of it. I think also a lot of it's cost driven. So there are some businesses who are downsizing their office space, so they can't fit their entire team in going back to work.
Some of those
so they have that flexible working.
Some of those companies, though, would sign up for 10, 15-year leases.
Yeah.
But maybe 10, 15 years ago. So they've still got...
They've still got the office space they need to fill.
There's a wonderful space up near us on the lakes. I mean, that would be rammed 5, 6 years ago.
Yeah.
It's empty now.
I mean, you go to the business parks and you can actually get a parking space.
Yeah, I mean, Milton Keynes is getting, I'll say, normal. Our office is at the Pinnacle on Midsummer Boulevard.
Yeah.
And pre-COVID, if I wanted a space, I'd have to be there at 7 in.
Yeah.
Now I can get a space. I wouldn't get one straight outside, but I could get one within a 50-yard walk, 100-yard walk.
MHA have just had their office refurb.
Yeah, it's beautiful.
Moved in there.
Yeah, Beckler did that.
And I think I think they're actually struggling for space. Bizarrely, I've heard because everybody wants to work in the office because it's so nice.
Exactly. And my office is right down by the train station. It's a really lovely environment. It's a great place to be. We've got a private car park, but I come out that car park to go anywhere, and I think, where's everyone going? Why are they all out on the road at the same time as me?
I do.
They?
I notice it in London because so Monday, Tuesday, Friday will be my Northampton days. Wednesday's my MK day, and Thursday's London. And my landlord down in London, we might have to edit this one out, Arthur. He refers to me as a twat because I'm one of those that only comes down on a Tuesday, Wednesday, and a Thursday. So there are some people that do have. Acronyms,
I know what to tell my husband now.
So, tell us about this fantastic event, which is the second year in its running.
Yes, second year. Well, so Milton Keynes Community Foundation, who are a grant-giving organisation, used to run the International Women's Day event, and they held it at various places, and they had a really good number of people in attendance. Women in Enterprise, which I am, I think, a year and 4 months in
You chair that.
Chair, just taken on my second term as chair. And I've been a committee member for a while and a member for even longer than that. And we're a not-for-profit networking group. So all the money that we raise from our events and our fundraising goes to the Women's Fund, which is managed by MK Community Foundation. So the Women's Fund supports projects that support women and children all around Milton Keynes. And that can be anything from a sports group to a local community group to the Period Pack to football. I mean, it's amazing. It's a really fantastic fund. So at the time, I think it was 4 years ago, one of the philanthropy directors at Community Foundation approached me and said, they have a fairly small team there.
Yeah.
Would Women in Enterprise do a little bit more? Would they be interested in perhaps co-running International Women's Day event with us? So I said, well, we'll support you in the first one and we'll see how it goes, because effectively our committee at the time was 10 women. All of us are volunteers.
Yeah.
We all either run our own business or are employed or are solopreneurs, self-employed. And I just wasn't quite sure how that would pan out. So we supported them and we got people to the event. And then I sort of started to look at the event and think it's been done in the same way for quite a long time now, and potentially there's some room here, some wiggle room, just to shake it up a little bit. Zhuzh it up. So the first year that we took it on, we had it at the theatre.
Yeah.
And we
spoke.
you did speak.
I did.
Actually, Amanda spoke. And we had all the charities that the Women's Fund support there at the event with stalls all around the
brilliant.
theatre. So it was in the foyer.
Yeah.
And it meant that we raised the profile of those charities and people could see what they were donating to.
Yeah.
Because I think it's really important, that visibility. And there are charities that people have never heard of, social projects that people just don't know about, but they're raising money for that, especially our members who are contributing. So we thought that worked really well. We did it the second year at the theatre. And then last year I thought, I just had a bit of a germ of an idea that perhaps we could do it a little bit bigger, a little bit better. I think we had 70 at the one at the theatre. So I can't remember how the conversation started with Debbie Lewis at NatWest, but I call her my co-conspirator. And Heidi Thomas, who's on the Women in Enterprise Committee, we roped her in at the time as well. She was working for herself at that time. She now works for Network Rail. And the three of us got together. I think it started off as a room of women, all who wanted to be involved, to say, can we do this bigger and better? And the initial plan was maybe we could do it at the stadium, maybe we could look at other venues. How are we going to do this? And out of that room of women, Heidi, Debbie and I became this core group. We still call ourselves the IWG core. And we thought, we can do this. We had such a short space of time to arrange it in. I think we did it in about 6 to 8 weeks. And we found a venue, found a keynote, found speakers, entertainment, a choir.
This is at the Ridgeway last year.
This is at the Ridgeway Conference Centre
yeah.
in Wolverton. And we made it, the theme last year was Inspire Inclusion. So we made it a free event for the first time because we weren't sure how it would pan out, whether anybody would come. Let's see how it looks. What can we do? What are we capable of? I certainly personally have never run an event like that. Debbie's very experienced in running much larger events for NatWest, and Heidi and I had never really run anything on that scale. So we got just over 450 people there.
Wow.
And we raised £4,200 for the Women's Fund.
Brilliant.
And the buzz in the room, I'm actually getting goosebumps thinking about it because I stood at the back when the choir started and cried.
Oh.
I mean, mostly because of stress and trying to organise it in 6 weeks. And we were exhausted, but it was just so inspiring to see a room of men and women.
Yeah. I've watched the video actually.
Yeah.
And they've captured it really well.
They have. And thanks to Amy, Amanda was previously at Amy, and they provided us with a videographer to capture and they did capture it well. They captured, I think, the energy, the buzz, the excitement. They got quite a few people that they caught their reactions.
Yeah.
And I remember Ian Revel, CEO of MK Community Foundation, saying, we've never seen anything like this, of this size and this magnitude. And imagine if Milton Keynes became famous for it. And that really caught my imagination. I thought we need to do it bigger and better.
So this year, how many people have you got going?
Well, we are hoping to get just under 600 people there.
Well, you've got me.
Thank you. Yeah, 3 people in this room. Arthur, you're welcome as well. we want as many male allies. We want as many women who were there last year,
Yeah.
as many people who want to support this year, who want to understand more. The theme is Accelerate Action. We have just signed our keynote. We've got panelists, more entertainment. It will look familiar, but it will be different. We have, we've tried very hard to get people that are connected locally, who perhaps we don't see all the time, because you get a lot of the same faces. There's nothing wrong with that. That's great. But we want to try and get fresh people, fresh voices, fresh ideas up there, and for people to leave feeling inspired.
So this year, it's at the Ridgeway Centre.
Yeah.
Friday the 7th of March.
7th of March. It is 9 o'clock to 9:30 arrival, 10 o'clock kickoff. This year slightly different. Last year was, I think, 9 till 12. This year we're running on further into the day. We've taken the centre for the whole day, and we have arranged to have the whole of the upstairs where we're running workshops in the afternoon. So in the ticket price, we're including lunch, so people can come along, be inspired in the morning, hopefully network, have really valuable conversations, have their lunch, and then go and visit workshops.
Have you got a keynote speaker?
Yes, Jazz Ampafor. So her speech is 10% braver. It is inspirational. Hair's going back on my neck again.
Brilliant.
I'm very excited.
We were going to put this
it.
out on International Women's Day.
Yeah.
But I think Arthur's going to have his editing skills put to the test, because we're going to have to put up a couple of clips so we can hopefully get a few more people from our audience to come along and support.
I can send you a little voice note of how many people turned up on the day for this going out on International Women's Day.
No, we'll get it out, I think, on a few days before.
Yeah.
So, ladies, I want to end with, you have clearly demonstrated, all three of you, of how inspirational and hardworking and multitasking you are. So thank you for sharing your stories with us. I'm now going to ask you, you've probably answered this question before, actually.
Go
I don't know. Dinner party tomorrow night, 4 people, past or present. Who do you invite?
Oh.
Go on, Amanda, kick us off. You two can have a little bit of thinking time.
I'd probably have Cary Grant, because I've always admired him.
Cary Grant?
Cary Grant, yeah. I don't know why, but I would have Cary Grant. I don't know. Somebody like Abraham Lincoln. Okay, because he was...
Pretty special guy.
Pretty special guy. Somebody funny. I'd have to have somebody funny, because I would really need that person to make me laugh my arse off. Eric Morecambe. Eric
Very
Morecambe,
good.
yeah.
And your final space?
And my final space, somebody glamorous, Marilyn Monroe, because I always loved Marilyn Monroe growing up.
Very good. Shazna?
Easy one. Definitely Maggie Thatcher. Oh, I've always dreamt of meeting her. Never got the chance.
You never know.
No, but yeah. Princess Di.
Princess
I
Diana,
cried.
yeah.
I was pregnant with my eldest boy when I heard of her passing. I think I locked myself in the room and cried for about a good 2-3 weeks. It still makes me cry whenever I watch anything about her. Yeah. And Chris Hemsworth, I always want to have someone in the room whom I can stare at and, just imagine. My husband knows.
I was going to say, not Dave then, no?
Well, he knows he's got, he knows about this whole
He's doing
crush.
the drinks.
Go on then, Michelle. Finish this off then.
I would have my grandmother, who was a female business owner in Fiji, which wasn't legal. And she was a landowner and owned a sugarcane plantation, and is very inspirational to me in terms of women in business and getting around the rules when you need to, in order to do the right thing.
Apple tree.
My aunt met Cary Grant. I'll tell you about that another time
okay.
at a reception in Fiji. Yeah.
Okay.
Who else would I have? I'd have my father, who's no longer here, because he followed me into recruitment. So I feel like, I could teach him a thing or two if he came back, and I could tell him about how it's changed. And again, was a very inspirational person to me, expelled from school at 15 and went on to be the youngest building society manager in the UK for the Abbey National. So,
National.
and he's a brilliant laugh. He was so funny. So, I'd have him. In terms of famous people, I'd probably have William Shakespeare. I think, because I love English and love literature, and for the comedic value as well. I think that would be great. And who would I have for my fourth person?
I took my kids to his house in Stratford upon Avon.
That's
It was
brilliant.
a really good day out
Yeah.
there.
Yeah,
Well, more
my
than
daughter's going for a school trip to the Globe. She saw Macbeth at MK Theatre, now she's going to see Macbeth at the Globe, and I'm really jealous because parents
doing
aren't
it for-
allowed to
is
go
she
when
doing it
they're
for GCSE?
16.
I think my
Yes.
next visit is to
Yeah.
Magic Mike. But,
Oh yeah, actually, yeah. Now we go down. I don't know. I've said 2 family members already. I probably would have to invite my husband, but if not, if it was somebody famous, then I'd probably say Johnny Depp because I watched Pirates of the Caribbean yesterday and he's hilarious.
Very good.
And interesting.
Right, ladies, thank you ever so much.